Welcome to another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. It's good to be back. We are now in October, second day of October 2016. I'm your host, Doug Owen, and you can join me on my website dedicated to this show, which is blacklistedradio.com. Lots of accoutrements, easy access to portals like the chat room that you can engage with other people during the live broadcast. You can tweet me 24/7, 365 at my handle, BLN Radio, and text the show if you like. If you have comments or voicemails, we may play those on air. 512-222-3067 is the number. By the way, I curate the news at blacklistednews.com, senior editor of that, and that's where we generate most of the topics for the show tonight. Unfortunately, we are going to have to start with the clown show. Some of you may have noticed I tweeted out that I was ready to watch the debate, and I knew what I was in store for, as did most of you that decided to watch the political spectacle that was the first presidential 2016 debate between the two major parties. Jill Stein was arrested, per usual. Gary Johnson not allowed in, per usual. And, I want to thank Prairie Ales in Tulsa, Oklahoma, for making it somewhat palatable. I had to drink to really numb my mind to watch the show. So there was definitely some takeaways. I'm sure most people have their own opinions. Left-wing media said that Hillary won. Right-wing media said that Donald Trump won. We had Lester, the moderator, who I guess did an okay job. He may have been receiving signals from Hillary Clinton. Of course, there's a huge amount of conjecture and questioning of her ability to get Lester Holt to go after Donald Trump by giving him signals. There was a famous poker cheat that came out this week saying that she was giving him obvious hand signals. She had some kind of device on her back. Lots of speculation as to what that was, whether it was a IFB in her ear so she could hear the people prepping her for questions. Obvious question would be whether or not she knew what was going to be asked. All of this is, a show that's dictated by the DNC and the RNC working in conjunction. So the takeaway for me was, I guess, that Hillary Clinton did a good job lying. And if anything that came out of either one of these candidates' mouths really mattered, or if, I believe that they would actually fulfill any of the promises or the dreams that presidents before them have promised, if I thought they were any different, then maybe most of the content would have mattered. I mean, there's some interesting takeaways. Donald Trump did mention the Federal Reserve being politicized. CNN went into damage control trying to mitigate that. Of course, that's kind of different. You don't usually hear much about the Federal Reserve. We'll talk about them tonight. Lots of money stuff to get into. So that was one interesting takeaway. Of course, who won the debate really depends on the eye of the beholder. I think that there's 57% of people now, according to Gallup, that want a new major American third party. So that shows you how many people are on the fence or like myself just believe that neither are truly electable. A vote for either is a vote for the war party. It's a vote for more uncontrolled spending, a police state takeover that has been going on since 2001 would only be reinvigorated by Donald Trump, and don't think that Hillary Clinton would do anything differently. So there were some interesting tits for tats. Of course, the emails. Ooh, getting an echo back here. Let's see. Thanks, Ken. I see you working over there. And thanks to Ken for running the show, doing all of the hard work there behind the glass. So, yeah, it was really, really, I guess, entertaining for a lot of people to watch, Donald Trump kind of going off, kind of like this show, a stream of conscience. And that's one of the things I appreciate about Donald Trump, although he wasn't very, in my opinion, very well coached in articulating those points. Saying that he didn't pay any federal income tax, not a big shocker. Most people that have, millions upon millions of dollars are able to shelter their money in one form or another. The people that pay taxes really are the middle class, the lower, socioeconomic groups. People, making less than $35,000 a year almost pay no taxes. So it's really people between the, 45 to 300,000 annual salary that really, really have to pay a lot of taxes in this country. Of course, a lot of people feel offended by that. I thought that one of the things that you should really try to message to the people is that, and he didn't, I just don't think that it really moved a lot of people, is that, these excessive corporate taxes, the loopholes, things that people like Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump enjoy are utilized by both. The New York Times, they generate quite a lot of money, paid no corporate taxes. I mean, he could have talked about Apple stashing money in Ireland, same thing that Bono and others have been doing, the Dutch, that's called the Irish sandwich. Google that. You'll find some, interesting schemes that, multi-billionaire or multi-billion-dollar Fortune 500 companies and billionaires, rather, use to their advantage. So you could talk about the tax code and how it's unfair all day long, and, I would agree wholeheartedly. But the story just kind of went off into, some personal attacks. Donald Trump was accused of snorting coke by Howard Dean, the guy that he lost his presidential electionability or electability with that one scream that he let out. He got a little too excited on the campaign trail. And so anyway, I mean, there's a lot of things that have been lodged at both of the candidates. Of course, if you listen to the show, most of you probably didn't even watch it. I felt kind of obligated. It was an obligatory thing for the show to do that. But yeah, I really wonder what people in other countries take away from what's happening in supposedly the most powerful and, in our own estimation, grandest country, the most influential, the most expansive government that has ever been. What they think when they watch, and not only if most of these people outside the U.S. probably don't even watch it, what they're reading and hearing, the interpretations of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton have to be concerning. And people keep talking about policy. I love my sister to death, and I shouldn't have even tried to make a discussion out of the debates, but she's one of these people that just kind of regurgitates memes, regurgitates these media narratives, that Donald Trump, we can't allow him to have the nuclear codes, be afraid. And it was like, wow, I just saw a whole PBS special about this, making it seem that it's really realistic that Donald Trump would be the man with his hand on the button. It's just a total misnomer. The president can't just shoot off nuclear weapons. No matter how mad or crazy the king may be, it just doesn't work that way. Another thing she said was, that Hillary Clinton has policy experience. And I just think about, the amazingly horrific and bloody job she has done in the Middle East that's created a crisis, a huge refugee crisis that is sweeping Europe. I look at what's happening in Yemen, Libya, beyond Benghazi. I mean, just the whole plan to oust Muammar Gaddafi, to what's happening in Syria, the administration drawing red lines, blah, blah, blah. All of that. And I just think, wow, is that the kind of policy that people really do respect? And I guess a lot of neoconservatives, even the Bushes, respect it. This is a big story today. Bush daughter attends Clinton fundraiser in Paris. Few basement dwellers, many discouraged. Oh, that's what Hillary said about Bernie. How did I get that in there? Anyway, Barbara Bush, 34-year-old daughter of George Bush, partied with Huma Abedin and the elite at a Clinton fundraiser on Saturday. She is the granddaughter of former Republican George H.W. Bush, the Bush clan patriarchy, who will vote for Clinton, according to Kathleen Harrington Kennedy Townsend, the former Maryland lieutenant governor and daughter of the late Robert F. Kennedy. How inbred, this thing, I was just thinking of some really horrible things to say, and I almost got taken back there. It shows you it's really a one-party system. The Clintons, the Bushes, the Republicans, the Democrats. You may have some people like an outlier, like Donald Trump, that are not part of the Washington elite, as Newt Gingrich said, are not illuminated into or initiated into the secret societies, who is not an esoteric, not a mystic, not somebody that has that credential. But Bibi Netanyahu had an interesting point. Israel Times reported this week that, and he said it best. He said it doesn't matter who becomes the president of the United States. They will stand with us and stand with Israel. So I think a lot of countries, regardless of who is in the White House, in the Oval Office, realize that the system, real deep politics, the CIA, the intelligence agencies, all the people behind the president that really run the show, that aren't elected, that stay there forever, indefinitely. Those are the people that really matter. Presidents. I thought about this a lot, and we'll pivot off of this. I've got other stuff, so if you're getting bored thinking about or listening to this, we will move on. But I thought about, what does a president of the United States do, and what would it be that Hillary or Trump would be in charge of? And if you look at least most modern day presidents, since I've been politically aware and really following what's happening over the last 20 years, they're really just people that go out and give other countries money. They fly into town, they tell them all the wonderful things about their special relationship that they have with France, with Europe, with NATO, with China, with even Russia. And they dole out money, government assistance, U.S. Federal Reserve notes, treasuries, bonds, debt, guns, weapons, energy, mineral rights, resources. I mean, that's really what the job of the president. Follow him around. What's he doing? He's going around and giving out U.S. cash. So he's kind of like the candy man of the world. And I know that might be an oversimplification of what the president does, but that's really the official capacity of his day-to-day operations, listening to what the CIA briefing is. Okay, so he gets his marching orders, what to be afraid of, who we need to kill. In Obama's case, which may or may not be a war crime, he actually picks targets to be assassinated without trial, without prosecution, through aerial drone strikes in countries like Pakistan, Afghanistan, literally anywhere in the world that the president feels that there's a terrorist organization and there's an imminent threat to the United States of America under the emergency powers that the presidents have dictated to themselves since 2001. They can assassinate anyone. So there is that. Donald Trump could kill some people, but with millions of Iraqis dead over the last tenure of the reigning neoconservative neoliberal movement under the auspices or under the control of Hillary Clinton's State Department. I mean, as brash as some of the things that he says may be, I don't know how they could be any worse. So anyway, we mentioned the Gallup poll. 57% of Americans want a third party and believe that, the one that we have, the two-party system that we have today, is completely bankrupt. So that's good. I mean, I guess people are becoming tired with this, although, it's going to be years, literally, until we have something different, something to it would take a huge amount of real mental conditioning to get out of this two-party system. I see it all the time. While we're in politics, Chelsea Clinton used a private jet to travel to her clean energy roundtable in Asheville, North Carolina. She's been getting a lot of heat, and I think it's good because, unfortunately, I think at some point in the very near future, in the next 10 to 20 years, we may see her running on the Democratic ticket. If we get to that point where we have a choice between another Bush and another Clinton, whether it be Chelsea or the Mexican George Bush, it just I don't know if anything could be more evident of how incestuous politics and the two-party system have become today. But there was one other thing that I thought was mention worthy, and that was the Russian hacking immediately during the Trump debate, the DNC leaks, which may have very well been leaked by somebody inside of the DNC, one of the many people over the last few months that have been mysteriously murdered and or suicided, that could have given that information to WikiLeaks. Of course, low-hanging fruit, and the people that Hillary Clinton hates most of all, the Russians, became the immediate target for this. And, of course, if you haven't been paying attention to the news here in the U.S., the voting systems. We've talked about, the vote being rigged and some of the problems that we may have with the voting machine's accuracy. But here now it has become, blame Russia. They're hacking our system, and this is leading to problem, reaction, solution. The Department of Homeland Security taking over the voting system here, federalizing the voting system in the United States of America. And it's bipartisan. On Wednesday, Paul Ryan, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, and Harry Reid sent a letter to Todd Valentine of the National Association of State Directors, or Election Directors, The leaders of Congress said the states face the challenge of malefactors that are seeking to use cyber attacks to disrupt the administration of our elections, and urge the association to work with the Department of Homeland Security and public and private sector resources to secure the election system. What does that mean? Well, that means that the Department of Homeland Security, which is heavily politicized, by the way, the appointee Jay Johnson, or as I like to call him, Judd Johnson, made this point. He said, quote, "We should carefully consider whether our election system or our election process is critical infrastructure like the financial sector and like the power grid." And I would think that, in a country that is based upon laws like ours, where we have really the thing that gives the government the right to do everything that it does in our name, is that we do have a democracy, an election of sorts, with some direct and indirect representation for the forced taxation that we have to pay. So I think it's very important. I think most of you think that the election system is very important. I think that there's really very simplistic, real hard ways to ensure the vote is not rigged, but that is not going to be to push. Of course, this is scaremongering to put more control and more companies that are part of the military-industrial complex into the position of controlling our elections. That's even more scary than a 4-year stint with Hillary Clinton and or Donald Trump, in my humble opinion. We'll be back on the other side. Lots to get into. Your calls are welcome. Go to republicbroadcasting.org, grab the numbers, and you can tweet me. My handle's BLN Radio. More in moments.
Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. Who is the girl wearing nothing but a smile and a towel in the picture on the billboard in the field near the big old highway?
All right, welcome back. This is Blacklisted Radio. We're talking politics, and we're going to move forward. One of the things that I think, when talking to my own father, that he and a lot of Americans are deeply concerned about is the economy. It's something that Hillary definitely focused on, and there's definitely two ways to look at how you make the U.S. economy more prosperous. And with Donald Trump, he wants to cut taxes on corporations. And of course, it's not a popular idea with most people, especially the basement dwellers out there, the booger eaters that want a free paycheck and they want something from government. I mean, people want they want something in return for the money that they know that they're being forced to pay, and so they want more regulations. Hillary spoke to that, whereas Donald Trump said, hey, reduce the tax rates on these companies, give them incentives to bring jobs back here to the United States, bring back manufacturing. How real or unreal that can be at this point with the world economy the way it is, I think you can re-incentivize people to bring businesses here, and I can speak to this as a person who has owned several small businesses, one of which, my cigar business, was regulated out of existence, and one was became unprofitable because of the amount of overhead and the amount of work. I mean, it's not just the amount of taxes you pay, it's the amount of complicated paperwork that you have to do and the people that you have to hire or pay to be able to handle that, so that you can actually live a life and do what you're supposed to be doing, which is making money for a company. But anyway, the Federal Reserve became a point of contention, and it's very interesting. Janet Yellen, who is the head of the Federal Reserve, nice little Jewish lady, really nice lady, can't raise interest rates, not going to happen, whether it's a political thing or because the Fed has backed us into a corner with low interest rates. Of course, the solvency of the banking, the too big to fail banks, especially in Europe, the Italian banks, German banks, Deutsche Bank, which has made a lot of headlines this week, kind of speaks to that inability to actually give returns. And now we're even seeing what they call ZIRP, which is zero interest rate programs and negative interest rate programs. So the Federal Reserve has been instrumental in empowering and giving free cash to companies, to banks that invest in ways that are somewhat politicized, but now they're trying to take it to the next level. And they're probably already doing this. There's already plenty of speculation from Wall Street insiders and others that the Fed is directly buying stocks to prop up the U.S. or global stock market, the New York Stock Exchange and others. And she spoke pretty candidly about it this week. On Thursday, Federal Reserve Chairman Janet Yellen suggested in a video conference call, as translated into plain English by the Wall Street Journal, that, quote, there could be benefits to allowing the central bank to buy stocks as a way to boost the economy in a downturn. It's great if your company is almost valueless and the Federal Reserve decides that you are important enough, or your company is important enough to buy those stocks. So the U.S. taxpayer, who has this sovereign debt to the Federal Reserve, would really be now investing in stocks. And I mean, that is just something that you would have got laughed out of town a few years ago if you even suggested that the Federal Reserve was actually politicized and buying stocks. But, I mean, I don't know how to give gravity to what that statement really means, that the central bank of central banks would be buying global stocks to prop up the U.S. economy. Sounds pretty dire. Well, something else that Donald Trump mentioned was China. Some of you were playing drinking games with some of the favorite phrases from Hillary and Donald Trump. And I wasn't playing any drinking games, although they might have been somewhat entertaining. But he mentioned China, drink. Chinese yuan has now become an IMF reserve currency, the first new edition since 1999. Yeah, we'll talk about that on the other side. So much to get into. You can be part of it. 800-313-9443. It's Blacklisted Radio. All right, welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio. So yeah, the Chinese yuan is now part of the currency basket as we see this globalized IMF trying to include, I mean, it's one of the pillars of neoliberalism in globalization is to have vested interests between nations. And so, as Obama explained at the UN this month, or last month rather, the U.S. has to cede some sovereignty. We have to give some of the money, some of the hard work of American people to other countries so that we can have a stabilized and world without war. That is the event, as George Bush said in his 1,000 Points of Light speech, that we must have a nation of laws, a world not controlled by, what was it? I paraphrased this weekly, but it was by criminals and ne'er-do-wells. We need, the United Nations to have international power. The Europeans are pushing for that right now. They're trying to, and this is something that was a conspiracy theory, no longer. They want the European army. I mean, that's where it ends up, right? It's about defense. Anytime they're saying defense, they mean offense. Anyway, so it's pretty interesting to see this, and this is probably more of a push to isolate Russia. Of course, Russia would love to have some of their money in the SDR, which is the special drawing right, which is the IMF currency note. It's more of like a debt note that countries can choose to use, like Iran. The U.S. had to ship them $1.4 billion in European notes because they're not part of the SWIFT banking system. They're not tied into international commerce through that system, so they could use special drawing rights, which is another type of currency note. So it goes beyond sanctions. It allows the IMF to have a lot of control and a lot of vested interests in places like China. So is it the end of the world? Does it mean the death of the dollar? I don't think that we're quite there, but it is a sign of things to come. Secret Swiss military bunkers being filled with gold by billionaires seeking alternatives to bank deposits. We heard, 2 weeks ago, that the German BND was telling Germans to prepare for something disastrous. And that led the internet to speculate as to what that really meant. It was kind of cryptic. And we heard about Deutsche Bank. They're too big to fail, and several other Italian banks that look like they are on the precipice. They are insolvent and highly leveraged. And the question will be, like Obamacare and so many other out of control, bankrupt, stolen from money pits, whether or not the taxpayers in this country or others will have to pay for, the bailout, the bail-in rather of these banking institutions. Of course, Germany's saying, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. Well, that's why billionaires, millionaires, and people that can afford to buy gold assets are putting them once again in Switzerland. Of course, Switzerland was famous for Swiss bank accounts. I don't know how well you can store your money, and most of you listening don't probably have enough money to store it in a Swiss bank account. I don't. But one of the I think the learning lessons from World War II was that the rich want to stay rich and they don't want to lose their stuff. And during a war, during famine, during chaos, people lose their stuff. People lose everything that they had. One day, if you owned a house in East Germany, one day you woke up and you were on the wrong side of the line. You were now a commie. You now had a pecking order. So somebody who was doing really well one day, never know what could happen the next. And so there were winners and losers, and everything that is to do with the New World Order makes sure that the winners who have been winning for a long time continue to win, and those that are not, well, they will continue to not be. So I saw this and I thought it was pretty interesting because it's kind of, another, I wouldn't say red flag, but another, thought process of the rich. And they usually have a pretty good insight as to where things are going. There's a new loophole for Dutch Bank's bailout. People are asking if game's over. Judging by the slow motion meltdown of a growing number of large banks in Europe, including the Deutsche Bank, in the IMF's words, the world's most important net contributor to systemic risks. Confidence in their solvency is evaporating, and the denial and blame games have already begun. This is definitely sending the stock market down. It's probably one of the many things that our 2016 elections are designed to take away from. Everybody's talking about whether you can trust Hillary or you can trust Trump. Really, the truth is you can't trust either. And while you're watching that show, other things are happening in the background that are probably much more influential in your day-to-day life. Internet takeover has become a topic. The internet is being taken over. I wanted to talk about this because as of the 1st, ICANN has now handed, or the Obama administration has handed the Internet Naming System, the DNS, domain name system, over to an international body that's quasi-controlled by the United Nations called ICANN. And a lot of people are freaking out about this. There's been a lot of hype. Actually, there's an interesting piece from Reddit that this wasn't Reddit. It was somewhere else. I want to say it was Politico. Stop Obama handing over U.S. internet control. 4 states are suing in a last-ditch bid. Of course, there's 4 Republicans who've actually filed a lawsuit in the last-ditch effort to stop the administration of Obama from handing over the internet's naming system to ICANN. So I guess for some of you out there that are a little non-tech savvy, you buy a domain name like blacklistednews.com, blacklistedradio.com, and you basically forward that to an IP address, which is a 4-octet number. It's 4 3-number sections, or possible 3 number. What would you call it? I call them octets, but each one of them. So it's basically four numbers, each being able to be up to 255. And that is how you transverse the internet. You want to go to a website, you have to put in a domain name, or you can put in that website's IP address. So blacklistednews.com has a server. Pretty easy, and I could tell you the domain, or rather the IP address of it. You can look it up online, and people go to blacklistednews.com. The domain name server takes it, says, okay, blacklistednews.com is at blank IP address. You go there. So ICANN having this system is basically like having the telephone book to the internet. But there are so many other redundant resources for domain name registration and systems that are redundant and use blockchain, very similar to the the system that runs Bitcoin, or Bitcoins are transferred through the blockchain. But without being too technical, I don't want to turn into nerd hour. It's just kind of a misnomer, a misunderstanding of this system. So you don't need a domain name to have a server on the internet. There's no way that the UN can shut down your website necessarily. They can put pressure on your server host. The Department of Homeland Security, or a multitude of government agencies can put pressure to shut down your website if it's located like blacklistednews.com is inside of the continental United States and other allies and nations that have treaties. You can have your website probably shut down host side, but the government never had, nor could they control the way the internet works. And so I think a lot of people are kind of freaking out about this, and there's been so much hype. What the government's worried about are the .govs, the .edus, some of the other sensitive domains that the federal government uses that could be possibly hijacked, which hasn't happened and probably wouldn't happen. This UN could maybe have some kind of system that said, hey, look, certain types of domain names we're not going to allow you to register because we find those inflammatory, like IHateJews.com or theholocaustdidn'thappen.org, something like that. That's a potential, but stopping you from putting that content out there and having people go to it is just impossible. So I just want to make that clear, so that, because I've gotten a lot of questions about it. What's going to happen? What's going to happen, Doug? And .gov and .mil, top level domains like that may possibly be taken, or depending on who has the keys to the DNS system, it could be manipulated. So when you go to whitehouse.gov, it takes you to russianhackercentral.ru, but the chances of that are pretty freaking limited. If you don't know about Bell Pottinger, it's well worth talking about. It's a big story. Pentagon was actually paying this UK firm called Bell Pottinger up to $540 million. Let's call it $500 million, to make fake terrorist videos. This has all now become public, and we have a great write-up at blacklistednews.com. Fake news and false flags, how the Pentagon paid a British PR firm $500 million for top-secret Iraqi propaganda. The Pentagon gave a controversial UK PR firm over $500 million to run a top-secret government propaganda program. We just found out Bell Pottinger's output included short TV segments made in the style of Arabic news networks and fake insurgent videos, which could be used to track people who watch them, according to a former employee. Interesting. When you're turning on your smart TV, we had a caller last week mention, how all of these, different TV shows and the books you read on Amazon or the content that you peruse could be used to profile you. It absolutely is used in a marketing profile, but also a government style dossier to assess you and your politics. I'm sure they would have a very interesting look at my browser and try to come up with what I believe. They'd probably be inaccurate, but anyway, Bell Pottinger's former chairman, Lord Tim Bell, confirmed to the Sunday Times, which worked with the Bureau on the story, that his firm had worked on a covert military operation covered by various secrecy agreements. Bell Pottinger reported the Pentagon and the CIA and the National Security Council on its work in Iraq. He said Bell, one of Britain's most successful public relations executives, is credited with honing Margaret Thatcher's steely image and helping the Conservative Party win 3 elections. The agency co-founded has had a roster of clients including repressive regimes and Asma al-Assad, the wife of the Syrian president. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And you see how much of this is government PR, but how much the government is going to companies that almost have no national allegiance, trying to it's funny. The same people that are selling you the Iraq War are also selling you the kind, gentle Bashar al-Assad image, or maybe the domestic UK people. This when we're selling them weapons, when John Kerry and Brad and Jolena Pitt, now recently divorced. Huge story. Huge. They had plenty of opportunities to paint this guy in this very warm light, and they did. Same thing with Muammar Gaddafi. When we're selling them weapons, they're nice people, just like the Saudis, who have taken a hit this week with Obama's first veto on the 9/11 reparations bill. Anyway, just another example. This is just one PR firm that had a huge media operation running. Not only were they domestically propagating this to British and U.S. Viewers, but also to the Iraqis. The Smith-Mundt Act repeal has allowed the CIA to actually insert domestic propaganda into the U.S. media, into national media, and it's not surprising. So when you're watching all these people getting killed, when you see the people in whatever country it may be getting gassed, and then the U.S. saying we have to go to war, we have a red line, just stop and think, could this all be fake? Could this be something that's a product of a PR company? And the chances are, it's very real that this company, like Bell Pottinger or many others, are putting their message into your morning news block. That's why, a lot of people, they call them low information voters, and it's so true. People that watch a lot of, mainstream talk and TV media get propagandized on a daily basis. And even if you take away what I take away from it, you're still getting the State Department rundown, these sanitized reports that are pushing a narrative, or that are, pushing an agenda. So I thought that was huge. It's a huge story. By the way, while nobody was watching, the U.S. has now legalized sending lethal weapons to the Ukraine, something that is just not on the radar. Quite honestly, last week the U.S. Congress approved the Stability and Democracy for Ukraine Act, or Stand for Ukraine, as the Ukrainian embassy in the U.S. is reporting. American congressmen unanimously supported the bill. The bill's list of means for supporting democracy in Ukraine includes the supply of lethal defensive weapons systems. The legislation will come into force following a vote in the Senate and its signing by the U.S. president. So we'll see where that goes. Interestingly enough, MH17, the shot down airliner over eastern Ukraine, the report is now out, one of the many official reports, and I don't even think this is the definitive report, but the Russians are saying had nothing to do with it. Of course, Hillary Clinton and her State Department and the CIA are pinning this all on Russia. Convenient timing for this report, considering we're sending them now offensive and defensive weapons. You bet. All right, quick break, final segment on the other side. It's Blacklisted Radio. 1-982-45-5242. That's how you get to blacklistednews.com. You can look it up. The IPv4 domain, or ip-lookup.net. You can put a domain and address in there, and if it's a favorite website and you think they may be taken offline, you can always go there and get their IP address. It's something I need to publicly put on blacklistednews.com. A lot of sites do that just to, make people aware of that being an option. Most people just don't know. And when it comes to ICANN, internet takeover, all of those things, it's hard to wade through it all. So I just want people to think about that. We get so used to it. It's like having a speed dial on your phone. You don't know the number that you're calling anymore. People don't use numbers. Very rarely, they might program them into their phones, but when you look up your friend, I'm looking up Doug O, or whoever your friend is. Hopefully, I'm one of your friends in your phone. You can look it up and boom, you click on that person's head, image, and/or name on your phone, and it takes you to that phone number. It's the exact same thing. So, there could be shenanigans with it. There's a lot of stuff I want to wrap up into this very last segment, but I don't think we're going to get too far here. We only have a few moments. Check out this story at blacklistednews.com. Texas sheriff who once busted Willie Nelson linked to a rogue U.S. intelligence unit under criminal investigation. This comes from The Independent, although it sounds like it comes from, conspiracyplanet.com or some other website like that. Even among the colorful pantheon of Texas lawmen, Hudspeth County Sheriff Arvin West has seized his share of the limelight. In his 16-year career patrolling the West Outback, he's busted crooner Willie Nelson for pot, accused the Mexican army of invading U.S. territory, and repeatedly ripped the federal government on television over border security. This is the guy that during Y2K was reporting that the Mexican army was coming into the U.S. government. This is an actual story that Alex Jones ran with. People were freaking out. Also during Hurricane Katrina, some of you may remember this. Same guy, and definitely a political operative. Anyway, maybe much more than that. Less well known are the county sheriff's strange connections to a rogue Navy military intelligence office at the Pentagon that has been under criminal investigation for the past 3 years. The former director of the intelligence unit, David W. Landersman, a civilian, is facing federal conspiracy charges for allegedly orchestrating a mysterious scheme to equip Navy commandos with hundreds of untraceable AK-47 rifle silencers. A new wrinkle in the case, however, has recently emerged in the U.S. District Court of Alexandria, Virginia, where prosecutors have suggested that Navy officials from the intelligence unit also sought to funnel military equipment to rural Hudspeth County and set up a secret training base near the Mexican border. Now, is this state sanctioned, or is this a little bit of, limiting culpability, trying to distance itself from these military operations that may be taking place under the auspices of the DEA or other agencies? Who knows? But the U.S. government is actually going after this rogue group. It's a very weird tie-in to Willie Nelson and some of the strange things happening out there. We get some of the reports from you out there along the border. Weird things are happening. Strange days for a lot of people out there in rural Texas, let me tell you. All right, guys, that's my time. I want to thank you for tuning into the show. Please let other people know about it. Support it. It's a commercial-free podcast that's available at blacklistedраdio.com after the show. That is on the house and is created by and for the people that support this show. So thank you to all of you that do that. Please go to blacklistedраdio.com, check it out, and I'll be back next week, as per usual, for another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. Till then, take care.